Welcome to the Legendary Leadership Summit 2019 with Cody, Dakota, Wooten.
Hello, and welcome back to the Legendary Leadership Summit 2019. We are back with Jackie Simmons right now, and I am super excited to have this conversation. We're going to be talking about the true definition of a leader with Jackie. And Jackie, you are an amazing individual. You're our #1 Amazon international best-selling author. You're the host of the Women Entrepreneur Show. You have a great tagline. It's "I suck at sales," and guess what? I've told myself that many times myself, and it's hard to be an entrepreneur and say you suck at sales, because guess what? You need to do sales. And I love your whole mindset around what actually is sales in general. And you've got your course out there, Confessions of a Networking Junkie, which I've been in that boat too. It's like you're speaking directly to me, Jackie, with all of your work. Because I've definitely been the person like, hey, hi, at all the networking events. And you're truly just doing some amazing work out there. You just told me about another project you're working on, which I'd love to touch on at some point during this conversation. But Jackie, welcome to the Legendary Leadership Summit.
Well, thank you, Cody. I'm really, really happy to be here. We started out by what's on the wall behind you. Inquiring minds want to know. When I realized that we spoke the same language, we've read very different sets of books, and we're running on the same conclusion. And the conclusion is that our world is struggling because we've lost sight of what leadership really is.
Absolutely. And it's been devastating to see it in the world. I mean, part of why I'm so passionate about what I do is because I see all of the challenges happening in the world around leadership. And it doesn't matter which, domain of leadership we're talking about. You talk at home, you have people that are running into leadership problems. Politics, do I need to say any more? Within the world of religion and faith, tons of challenges there, which are truly heartbreaking. And business, I mean, we're all seeing it, and it's all adding up.
It is. It adds up. And because we are so interconnected and plugged in, turned on, all of this information is just downloaded on us. We don't even have a choice to turn it off, because if you're watching one thing, something else will come streaming across the TV. Whoever thought that this was a good idea probably has done more to increase the sales of Ritalin and other ADD drugs than anything else in the marketplace. I went to visit my mama, and she had her TV on almost all the time, and she was watching a TV news station that I don't ever watch. And holy Toledo, it had a box in the middle, and then it had a scrolling down the side, and then it had a scrolling across the bottom. And I'm like, how do you pay attention to all of that? I'm like, she said, I don't. I just watch this piece. And I'm like, and your brain is getting fatigued just having that on in the room. Yeah. And we do that to ourselves. And now it's not just on the TV. Now it's on our phone. And while we could turn off a TV, we don't turn off our cell phones.
No, that would be heresy to do that.
The day that I started turning my phone off at night, and I let my kids know, leave me a message, but there is no crisis that you're going to have that cannot wait for me to respond in the morning. Otherwise, you send somebody to knock on my door. And funny thing, the nighttime crisis calls stopped.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's called setting a boundary or a constraint. And we've lost track of doing that too.
Oh, absolutely. And that by itself causes so many problems. I actually, one of the other speakers, we were talking about this lately, because different people come into a situation with different expectations. And if there's no boundary set, the expectations typically go against each other. And then
Hmm.
chaos ensues.
You know, it's funny thing about that. We used to call that good, clear communication. I had somebody tell me that it was rude to lay out my expectations up front. And I'm like, I'll tell you what, you be polite, I'll be wealthy.
I love that. And I don't understand how that's rude. And that's just me personally. And I could be wrong. I'm not a perfect person. I'm very imperfect, right? But like I feel like you should lay out your expectations because your time is valuable, you are valuable, and you want your relationships to be of value.
As you know, I'm in the middle of rereading the book Essentialism. And one of the things he noticed was that teams that perform, all of the teams that perform really well have one thing in common. They have a clarity of the goal that they're all working on, a clarity around the vision. And we live in a world where people don't even want to say, I work with this group of people, because heaven forbid somebody should self-select out. Well, you know, let's get real here. What would you do if everybody wanted to work with you? There's only 24 hours in the day and only one of you. So that doesn't make any sense at all, but it is the fear of alienating someone. And I keep having the same conversations with people around this, because you cannot lead a business. You can't even write a sales letter talking to more than one person.
And if you try to, because I've been there, I've tried that myself, I've been that person, I'll be the first one to admit that I was that dummy, right? It sounds just really bland. Like, be there,
Yeah.
buy this, you'll like it. Why will I like it? Well, it depends on who you are. Okay, now I'm not interested.
Yeah. If you don't know me well enough, here we go. If you don't know me well enough to describe my problem in the words that I use to describe my problem, you don't know me well enough for my money.
Exactly. And so you have to set up those expectations in order to be an entrepreneur, definitely. But I would also argue to be a leader.
I think definitely to be a leader. I'm not sure that there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and being a leader. And the reason I say that is because, well, it's my history of leadership. When we're an employee, we can have a lot of autonomy, especially in highly functioning teams. But we also, at some point, have leadership the way my daddy did leadership. My daddy did leadership by telling people what to do. He was an Army sergeant. So, yeah, so this was my first exposure to what leaders did. Leaders told people what to do. And there's a lot of that happens in business. It kind of, you have to, you know, to be able to function, somebody has to be guiding and directing. But then I realized that my mama had a different style of leadership. And my mama's leadership was to tell people what to think. She was a teacher. And so she not only told people what to think, but she told them what the answers were. She always had the correct answers. So my second definition of leadership was the person who had all the answers. Sounded pretty good as an entrepreneur. Do you know that if you walk into a networking group with the attitude that you have all the answers, you walk out with no money?
Yeah. It's because it completely depersonalizes you, 100% depersonalizes you. Because if you have all the answers and you know everything and you know where people need to be going, like people become terrified of you. They're like, oh, like this person's like too much for me.
And I was that person for many years. I mean, even actually up until the not so distant past, did I get it. But that was because I had bought into another form of leadership, which was my grandpa, my dad's dad, because he didn't tell really people sort of what to do, what to think. But my grandpa, he told people what to believe. He was a preacher.
You're hitting the whole gamut of different types of leaders.
I grew up with this understanding that leadership was somehow telling people what to do, what to think, and what to believe, which does not bode well for an entrepreneur because people don't want to be told. Yeah, we get out of school at some point. We don't want to be educated, even though anybody who puts the word, and you're going to learn this, is pushing against the natural no button in people's brains. So just if you've got that in your copy, heads up, you're not going to lead them in the direction you want them to go very easily. What I finally figured out, Cody, was that leadership was not about telling people what to do, what to think, or what to believe. Matter of fact, it had nothing to do with other people at all. It had to do with knowing what I felt. It had to do with knowing what my gut knew to be true. And then I got into the whole mindset realm, and I've been a brain retrainer now for many years, because when you're trusting your emotional guidance system, when you've learned to shift leadership from telling people what to do, what to think, or what to believe, into trusting that your gut knows what's right and that their gut knows what's right. And when you can have that heartfelt conversation, trust is built in an instant because they know you're with them, not above them or, more powerful than they are. You're just both equally in a conversation around what do you want next? How do you want to get there? And if you don't know the how, don't worry. That's going to come after you clean up whatever limiting beliefs are in the way. So that I help people lead themselves now. Because my big job is not helping other people. My big job is leading me. And I'm a full-time job.
Absolutely. And I think that is something that more people need to see in the world, because the hardest person to lead is yourself. And it's very, very easy to see all the faults in everybody else, right? but to accept your own faults and to say that I need to work on those faults and say, I am not perfect at all, right? That's a hard thing to do.
Well, now you're speaking my language. I call it taming the elephant in the room. Because as much as I thought that I was hiding the fact that I had anything less than the right answers, everybody else could spot it. And that's the elephant in the room. It's what you can't see. It's invisible to you, but other people can see clearly.
Definitely. My whole mind is thinking about, like, you brought the elephant with you into the room and you're like, you can't see it. Not here. It's not here. I can block it. You're not seeing it. But like, everyone's like, seriously, I see it. It's right behind you. It's right there. Like, like, you can't see any gray. Like, literally, there's gray all over the place right there. It's an elephant. Its trunk just reached over your head. Like, you can't tell me that's not an elephant.
I so get that. As a matter of fact, I've got a great image of myself on a stage with the whatever those Tron screens are. And I'm going to find a really good graphic artist to get my elephant in the background, because I have this elephant, beautiful, beautiful logo that I used to have up on my banners. Beautiful in that everybody loved him. His name is Mayhem. And this elephant is trashing an office. The desk is overturned, the vase of flowers is overturned, papers are flying, and in his trunk, he's holding a teacup. And I'm like, That's what it's like to be an entrepreneur. Every limiting belief that you have picked up along the way is like an elephant in the room. It will sit on your phone and stop you from being able to make sales calls.
Absolutely. So within your life, what were the limiting beliefs that came up for you, and how did you manage to overcome them?
How much time do we have?
We've got some time. We've got some time.
People will get bored, but I
Not
will
at all.
answer your question. The reality about limiting beliefs is, imagine you're an entrepreneur, you're sitting in front of your computer, you need to make sales calls and write emails. And you're sitting there not feeling energized. You're just sort of staring and maybe staring out the window. And if you could take a snapshot of what was going on in your brain and in your body, we'd start with the body. And the body is, not feeling good, kind of queasy. The thinking is, I don't know how to do this. I'm not ready to put my business out there. Nobody's going to read this email anyway. Mm. And what's fueling that is the fear of whatever I do, it's not going to be right. And there are just some universal fears. This was one of mine. I was in an environment growing up where if people asked me questions, I got shut down immediately because I knew if I answered it, later that answer would come back to bite me. Because the belief system that I was seeing the world through, no fault of my family, it was just a decision I made at a time I don't even remember that said, I can't do anything right and everybody knows it. And it can be the most innocent comments that people make. It is the being able to read and having a sister who's dyslexic and having my mom, before they knew what dyslexia was, before there were any diagnostic tests, she's older than I am. And my mom one day in the car while I'd been reading said to my sister, why can't you read like Jackie does? In that moment, I started hiding the fact that I could read because I didn't want my sister to feel bad. Mm. And the habit of hiding is the biggest elephant in the room that I carried with me all through my growing up into my adulthood. I learned that you can hide in plain sight. So people thought they were seeing me because I could go network. And this is how Confessions of a Networking Junkie got born. I networked my assets off. I went to hundreds of events and gave out thousands of business cards. I built up a really huge network, a ton of goodwill, and had almost no clients. And it was really something that a chance ribbing comment from a friend changed my world, because she said, Jackie, I see you everywhere. You're great at making connections. Your date book must look like alphabet soup. You're in every organization. And that was true. And then she said, and I have no idea what you do. I could hide in plain sight.
Yeah, that's like a smack to the face of any entrepreneur, because you're like, you feel like you know what you're doing. You feel like you tell people that message. You feel like it all makes sense. And then it just turns around and they're like, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah. Like, why do I care?
Exactly.
It is the why do I care that people don't say, but if they did, they would get a different answer from us at a networking event. Mm. I teach, well, I host the Women Entrepreneur Show, but I also run a group called the Empowering Women Network. And empowerment in my world is you take the word empower and you split it, and now you have embracing your power. So that's what empowerment is in my world. And Tuesday morning, there was this moment where I saw somebody go, oh, she'd been networking. and telling people about her products and how it worked and the fact that she did in-home parties and that it was fantastic stuff and everybody had a good time. And no one was booking any shows or asking her any questions. And in the course of our conversation, which happened to be about story and why getting a story even into your elevator pitch, even into your one sentence intro is so important. And what she realized is that there were two words that if she inserted them into her intro, it would make all the difference in the world. And she's out testing it this week, so I can't wait. The two words are imagine if.
Oh, I love that.
Instead of her telling people about the party that her last client had, she's looking at them going, imagine if you had 6 of your best girlfriends over and now they've already booked the party in their minds because
Definitely.
she told them the story.
What
and
I
got them to hear
love,
it.
yeah, what I love about that is so many people in positions of leadership, not people who are living as great leaders, but they're in positions of leadership, always are pointing to the past. They're saying, this is what happened. This is what we did. This is, this is what it is. It's in the past though. And there's no focus on where are we going? What are we trying to accomplish? How does this lead to the results, right? And sometimes it comes out like, this is what we did in the past. This is what we're going to do again. It's like, okay, that's great, but what does that have to do with the future? And a leader has to guide people to the future, to guide them to the possibilities, to guide them into a new image of themselves within that future. And if you're always pointing to the past, there's no room for the future.
There's the two sides of that, which I love, because what I realized was not only do people in positions of leadership, and I love the distinction about the difference between someone who's in a position of leadership and someone who is actually a leader. Someone in a position of leadership not only pulls the past, they are a little bit like my dad, and they say, follow me. They tell people to follow them. I think someone who is a true leader is not only able to see the future, they're actually stepping into it. The distinction is that instead of saying, follow me, they simply state, I'll go first. And they're off in the direction of the future. And everybody has the choice. You can keep up, or get left behind. It's a very different attitude about understanding that leadership really is leading. It's going first.
Absolutely. And there's so many people in leadership positions who are afraid of being the first one. They're afraid of the ridicule. They're afraid of what if the team doesn't follow me? There are all these it seems crazy, but that is a true fear that happens a lot.
Oh yeah, the what if, shifting the what if to the imagine if and making it a positive, getting control over what you decide to think about. Other favorite authors, because we've been talking about authors, Earl Nightingale, in his book, The Greatest Secret, in that recorded talk that he did that was like, I think, the first gold record for a talking record. I mean, tons of copies of this are out there. He was the one who was most notably telling people how to do the whole mindset thing, how to do the law of attraction. He got it down to one simple sentence, which is, you become what you think about. I narrow it back. A leader's decided not just what to think. A true leader has decided for themselves what to believe.
Ooh, I like that a lot.
It's faster to make change if you decide that you're going to control your BS, your belief systems. That's faster way to make change than it is to control your thinking. Because thinking comes from beliefs, and you can concentrate and concentrate and concentrate, and you will gradually retrain the filter in your brain, the reticular activating system. But if you want to change something quickly, change the belief, learn how to do the decision making that allows for a belief to change, because beliefs are the root of all thoughts. Your thoughts will change automatically, so will your feelings, and your emotions are what drive your actions. So you'll take different actions and get different results very, very fast if you take that half step back from thinking to what you believe.
And that's so powerful, because so many people try to train their thoughts, and it is hard. And a lot of times we don't even know the thoughts we're having. Like you think like you own all of your thoughts. They're in my head, they must be mine, right? But sometimes they're not. Like, that's the crazy thing. Sometimes they're your mother's thoughts, your father's thoughts, your grandfather's thoughts. They didn't originate with you at all, and they're determining what you did end up thinking, and it's not even yours.
Would you like to take a journey with me into how the brain really works?
Yeah, let's take this journey. Hold on, let me get my backpack on. All right, let's go.
When we're born, we have three major sections of the brain: brainstem, limbic brain, where the emotions are, and the neocortex, which starts gathering data. From the moment we have sensation, we are just data gathering machines. And little kid crawling around encounters something furry, 4 legs, bad breath. Somebody says dog. And kids start building out in their neocortex this book of dog. This is what a dog is. And everything is great, unless something happens where the kid gets scared by the dog, or heaven forbid, bitten by the dog. And then the child's definition, their book of dog, includes the meaning, dogs are dangerous. From that moment on, anytime they encounter 4 legs, furry, bad breath dog, it's seen through that filter, that meaning of dogs are dangerous. So could be the friendliest animal alive, but every twitch of the muscle is going to be interpreted by that child as being dangerous. So they're already firing chemicals into their body on a regular basis that they're in a life-threatening situation because of a meaning they assigned at a time they probably don't even remember. Now, here comes the funny part. This thinking brain that everyone is trying to use the law of attraction and to do what you think about comes about, and all of these wonderful things, even you become what you think about, or from The Secret, thoughts are things. The answer to this is, whoops, guess what? Your prefrontal cortex is not fully developed at all. It's not even really developed until you're at least 12, and not completely developed until you're in your mid-20s. So we've got the original brain, and then we have what people think is in control, which is the prefrontal cortex. And basically they are trying to change everything using an aftermarket part.
And it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work well at all. It does work, but it's slow.
Very slow.
It's slow. And so that's the understanding. Once you get the fact that the meaning was a decision that the child made from a brain that didn't have the ability to rationalize, didn't have the ability to compare, it only had the direct experience. Now you can go, okay, that was the direct experience. What does it mean? And for me, when I started getting control of that, I realized I could walk into my house and dirty dishes in the sink were just dirty dishes in the sink. They didn't mean somebody was lazy or somebody didn't love me or anybody was rude. It just meant there were dirty dishes in the sink. And that's emotional resilience and control. And it is our emotions that dictate our actions. It's not your thinking, people. It's your emotions. So
Yeah, absolutely. Because so many times we rationally know exactly what we need to do. We're like, oh no, this is what I need to do. And then all of the emotions come flooding in and we're like, well, but then there's this opportunity over here, and I could be doing this, and I feel like this is kind of important. And like if you rationalize it, it's like this is what you got to do. But
Mm-hmm.
then the emotions start coming in. It's like, well, I'm scared to do that, but I can do this over here, right? And it
Oh, yeah.
completely prevents you from actually doing what needs to get done.
It does. And it is an elephant in the room. And since you said that you'd like to talk about my pet project, I will tell
Yes.
you a story.
I would love to hear this story.
I'm very enthusiastic and I love being around enthusiastic people. And I hang out with entrepreneurs. There is not a more enthusiastic group in the entire world, and there is nothing but opportunities to work together and to partner and to do things, and it's just great. And I would enthusiastically say yes if somebody asked me to help them with their project. If they were enthusiastic, I was right along with them. The problem, all of my own projects were suffering. So I was outwardly enthusiastic and inwardly frustrated and overwhelmed, and sometimes resentful, even though they're not in charge of me saying yes. My friends tried to point out to me that I was riding an elephant. Couldn't see it. Eventually, I figured out that, yeah, I was riding an elephant. I was riding an elephant named Enthusiastic. And Enthusiastic wears a t-shirt with a big blue yes embroidered across the front of it. And anytime an opportunity would come up, if I couldn't say no to it guilt-free, which is really, really hard because we don't like
Very
to disappoint
difficult.
people. Yeah. It was an enthusiastic yes.
Yes.
I can do this. I can add one more thing onto my plate. I was so burnt out. And this was like one morning, I'm like going, I must have been dreaming, because I realized in that half awake place, I wasn't riding one elephant. I was riding two. The first one that I had identified was this enthusiastic wearing the yes. But the other one was the real problem causing one. It was that one that said I couldn't say no unless I could do it guilt-free. The other elephant's name is Guilt-Free, and Guilt-Free wears a t-shirt with a big red no on the front of it. Couldn't say no guilt-free, an enthusiastic yes, and off I would go. Well, this got to be pretty bad, and meaning that I didn't have time to work on my own projects. When you're not working on your own projects, it's hard to keep clients. It's also hard to make money.
Yeah.
So this is a slow track towards bankruptcy. It was so slow that I didn't notice for a while that I was drifting downward. I was getting pretty close to the bottom and pretty upset, and finally stormed out of my office because I couldn't focus. There were just so many demands, and what I was seeing as demands, opportunities coming into my email box. I just took a nap. Well, when I woke up feeling kind of better. And I think the elephants got together, because here's what happened. I went back into my office and I opened up my email, and sure enough, there was another opportunity to join in. But I didn't hit reply right away. And into my office sauntered Guilt-Free. Guilt-Free always comes in first. But they had changed t-shirts. Guilt-Free was wearing this bright blue yes. And I realized, I can't say yes to this guilt-free, because it's going to take time away from my clients, away from my partners, away from my family. So I can't say yes to this guilt-free. And right behind that elephant came the other one. Here came Enthusiastic wearing a t-shirt with a bright red no on it. Holy Toledo. A new rule in my life. If I can't say yes guilt-free, it's an enthusiastic no. I've tempered my enthusiasm a little bit because people are not used to enthusiastic no's. We have polite rules about such things. So
yeah, and you feel kind of like like wow, they really told me no excitedly. Like, ouch, that hurt. Like, nope, I'm not gonna do that. Like, ow, that was kind of painful how enthusiastically you said no.
the reality is there are a lot of ways to say no without using the word no. And there's skills in that. Actually, there's a part of the book, Essentialism, that teaches how to do that. What happened for me is I could zip through my emails and my offers quickly, because if I couldn't say yes guilt-free, if it wasn't perfect, it was no. And I could just keep moving. and improved my focus and my productivity. So now these are my leadership elephants, these twins, and it is, if it's not a guilt-free yes, it's an enthusiastic no. And I wrote this story for the book. Make it a great day. The choice is yours. To help teens feel inspired. I wanted them to have a tool. So I ended the story with, and if you don't have some elephants that you can ride to get what you want, you can borrow mine, but don't let them change t-shirts.
That's awesome. I love that because we're in a polite society. That is a friend of mine, speaker. His name's Tom Singer. He says that a lot. And within the world of speaking, one of the things you don't want people to say is, that was a good speech. Why? Because it's a polite way of saying that you didn't do anything to inspire them. And so often, being part of a polite society, we think that we either have to be nice to people in a, like, I'm trying to figure out how to say this well. You have to do what they say and be enthusiastic about it.
Oh, I was very popular when I was writing enthusiastic. Yes.
Exactly. Because you were the person that would always say yes, that would always get it done, and you were always going to put your best efforts into it. And they're like, wow, if I can get this person on my team, that'd be great, even if it's a short period of time. And but there's a tax to you as the person when that happens, and it can be devastating. I've been there myself. I've been a yes guy myself, and it's painful.
It's very painful. And we live in a society where rather than being uncomfortable for 10 minutes, we will put ourselves in a position to be miserable for 10 years.
I was just thinking, yeah. And it's crazy, right? It's crazy that we're willing to sacrifice our goals, our dreams, our potential for the sake of comfort.
It's that limiting belief that we were talking about earlier that says, well, here, when we're really, really little and something happens that's too confusing, happening too fast, too intimidating, or too painful, the child knows what's true. What's true is, if you leave me, I will die. So the child cannot make the adult wrong. I mean, that's a visceral gut knowing. So in order to stay sane, in order to make sense out of a world, out of a moment that's not sane, the child begins to believe a lie. And the lie is, there must be something wrong with me. And because we adapt to that lie, and it starts filtering, like the book of dog, we start to filter all of our experiences in that core belief. We start to notice all the things that match up to, there must be something wrong with me. How many times have you heard somebody say, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too tall, I'm too short? Or somebody that you're trying to get hired by, like, and trying to get a job as an actor, and they need somebody shorter. Well, I could be shorter. Yeah. But no, whatever it is, we're too something, we're too tall. it's this belief that we keep feeding into that says that there must be something wrong with me. Otherwise, we would all just say, this is who I am. And if I'm this tall, maybe basketball's not for me, unless, there are a few exceptions to that. But for the most part, who we are is who we are. And if we look at our strengths rather than fighting against what we're not, fighting for what we're not, we spend a lot of our time leading ourselves into a dark, dank, miserable little town called Shouldville. And Shouldville is where lives get lived and dreams go to die. And it's really becoming a chronic problem because people think that I should have done something else, or they should have done something else, or life shouldn't be this hard, or they shouldn't be that lucky. And the more time we spend in Shouldville, the less time we spend actually imagining a future, having a path out. So as Tony knows, and actually I'll make a gift to everybody on the call, if they just want to find me on Facebook and shoot me a note with it, I will send them a Get Out of Shouldville free card, because it's the fastest path I know. It will make you laugh. And if you are laughing, your brain is open. And if you read this out loud while you're laughing, you can actually change the way that the world works. And because I practice what I preach, I have a Shouldville card right here. Yeah. I keep it on my desk all the time. It's just, we've been taught that things are not the way they should be. And the truth is, they are exactly the way they should be. They can't be anyone else. They can't be any other way. What it is, it is. And we argue with this. And we take all our energy in arguing about something that's just, like gravity. It just flippin' is. And if you stopped arguing and started accepting without any conflicts, and before somebody puts in the chat room, what won't that mean that I'm approving? No, acceptance is not approval. Acceptance is acceptance. It's a neutral, safe place to be seeing the world from. And then if you accept that that person is the way that person is, you don't have to approve. From that calm place, you can leave. It's hard to leave from a place that's not calm, because you just attract the same kind of person over and over again if you do. So lots of skills that I teach around this, because when you can get a handle on your attitude, you've got control of your life.
Absolutely. And that cycle is really, really vicious. Because you think, oh, I can't do something because of this, and then you can't do it. So it just feeds the information that, oh, well, I was right about that, so it must be true. And then it comes up again and you can't do it. And it's this vicious cycle over and over and over again.
And you're reinforcing something that's not true to begin with, because that filter only lets in about 10% of what we experience going on around us. And it's the 10% most closely aligned with the strongest belief.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I want to bring you back, though, because you said something about the one thing a speaker doesn't want to hear. And, that's my other thing is I help people learn how to actually own a stage. Many, many people are struggling with their speaking. It's becoming like an epidemic. They're like, I don't know how to inspire an audience. I know how to educate. I know how to pontificate. I know how to entertain, but I don't know how to inspire. And when I tell them the secret to that particular dilemma, they run like crazy away from me. You'd think the house was on fire, because it hits in this belief system. The cure for struggling to inspire your audience is really simple. Take the focus off your audience, put it on yourself, and be inspiring. It's not about inspiring them. It is about inspire yourself, and then they will automatically be inspired by you. It is so simple and so hard to do.
Absolutely. It's the quote, be the change you want to see. If
Mm-hmm.
you want to see inspiration in the world, be inspirational to yourself.
Yep, exactly. That's the piece that most people are missing. They're trying to be inspirational on a stage, and then they're going backstage and beating the crap out of themselves because they forgot a word or they flubbed a line, and they come at it from this place of, I've got to memorize this and it's got to be perfect. And none of that is true. When I stopped trying to be perfect and started being on purpose, people started being able to see me when I spoke. I stopped being invisible. They stopped seeing my elephants and started seeing me. It's a very humbling experience from someone who thought that leadership was telling people what to do, think, and believe. It's allowing people to know how I feel. Very different place to be, Cody.
Absolutely.
I highly recommend it.
Definitely. And one of the things that you were touching on, when you're on stage and you're trying to be one person and you get off stage and you end up being a different person, and it doesn't have to just be on the stage. It can be when you go to work, you're one person, and you come home and you're a different person.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever plethora of other things there are out there, right?
Look, there is such an epidemic of people who are dating
Mm-hmm.
from a place of who they are on the date and who they are when they get home, who they are on social media, and who they are when they're at home in their scrubby jeans and pajamas. Yeah. I mean, we've set ourselves up to be inauthentic because we're not comfortable with being visible. And that shift has to happen. It has to. We are in front of cameras. We are in front of our phones and Facebook Lives. We are visible. We're just not allowing ourselves to be visibly vulnerable. And until we become a little more willing to be visibly vulnerable, it's tough to be visibly valuable.
Definitely. And the reason that is because you've literally created schizophrenia in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally you've created two different personalities that you have. And one of them may be true. For most people, neither of them are true. And so you're living a life where you don't feel like you're any of the personalities that you're putting on. You've created a schizophrenia that's not true to who you are, and you feel terrible no matter what situation you go in because your mind is battling what it wants to be and what you're trying to put into the world. That's not true.
It's hard to relax when you're at war with yourself. And you just gave a great description of being at war with yourself. It's insane. And we do live in an insane time because everyone is battling this if they are facing people at all. We have a lot of expectations, and living my life by other people's expectations, being more aware of other people's opinions than I was of my own. They used to call that being self-effacing, and it was something that was considered a good thing in our culture. Loss of face in the Asian cultures is not a good thing, but in our culture, being self-effacing was hailed as a positive trait. The challenge is that a lot of people suffering from the diagnosis of clinical depression are not truly depressed. They've just erased their face to the point that they've lost who they are. And for me, that was true. I'm a survivor of 2 bouts of clinical depression. And what I realized coming out of the last one was that if I continued to live my life the way I was living it, I was either going to have a very short life, or I was going to get to the end of my life having lived someone else's. And it was the recognition that I had to have a third option that created my drive to do what I do now, that created my purpose in my life. I spent 30 years trying to figure out this puzzle. And the day that I set down my bottle of antidepressants for the last time is the day that has this whole, in January, this happened. In February, this happened. And these were all decisions that I made. I made a life-altering decision in January of 2003, a life-altering decision in February, a life-altering decision in March. And in April, I set down my antidepressants and haven't picked them back up, haven't needed to. And that's been 16 years.
That's amazing.
There's a way to sanity, and it starts with recognizing that it's nobody else's job to lead you. It is your job. And you have an internal emotional guidance system that is your truest path to being able to identify what wants to change so that you can lead yourself out of Shouldville and into the life that you really want, into the business that makes a difference in the world. There's a fast path. And Cody, I could not be happier to be part of your leadership summit, because I think it's a topic that could use more conversation.
Absolutely. And not only just because it's an important topic, but from a leadership perspective, one, a lot of leaders are facing this in their own lives in different ways. There are leaders who don't find value in themselves, which lead them to terrible states of mind, including depression, including anxiety, amongst a variety of other things, which is literally killing them. It leads them to seek out something outside of them to overcome it, such as medication, bad relationships, a variety of other things that are out there. And when those things don't work, it feeds back into, it creates this, again, vicious cycle of, I'm not worth value because this thing that's supposed to give me value doesn't give it to me. And that's one person. Now, if you're a leader or you're in a leadership position wanting to become a leader, you're not the only one facing this. It's highly likely the people around you are also facing this.
Oh, yeah. And you just gave a really, really great description of 2 elephants. And the symptom that people recognize them by are the emotions of anxiety and depression. That was my 2-step coming into what the field of study that I'm in. What's really going on is what you said before, which is the other set of really symptoms. That in order to manage a life that has anxiety and depression and that discomfort, they're distracting or numbing. That's the other 2-step. And when people start swinging between distracting themselves and numbing themselves, the world starts to get out of control pretty quickly. And I think that that's what we're seeing a lot of as far as the cultural shift, is we are watching people distracting and numbing and not engaged in what they're doing, which is, I think, why we have more car accidents than we used to, because we're distracted from our driving. I mean, it's time for somebody who wants to have a better life to own leading themselves, so that other people can follow. Got to be willing to go first. So I like leadership challenges. So I got a leadership challenge for your group. And this is outside of what I was going to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. So here we go. There's a website you can go to. You'll get the 7 rules of a total success mindset. These are the 7 guidelines that will help you start leading what's going on behind your eyes and between your ears. This is where you have all of your power. It's not outside of you, it's inside of you. So I've got this up for everybody. They can just go and grab it for free. And I put it up on a website, Total Success Mindset. And they can just go and grab that. So it's a .com, totalsuccessmindset.com. And they can grab that for themselves and start walking their path. And I'll tell you what, I'll monitor it. And anybody who grabs it, I will send them an electronic copy of the Get Out of Shouldville so that they can have that as well. Because I just think that the tools that are the simplest might be the ones that you'll actually use. And these are pretty simple.
Absolutely. That actually touches on another really interesting topic we can dive into around leadership. Is so often we think like we have to have all the answers. We have to make it complex, right? And that's not true. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be crazy. And in fact, the more out there and crazy and all of that, the harder it actually is to get people where you want them to go to.
You're almost giving them, pardon me, fell off my stool here. You're almost,
no falling, it's not allowed.
You're almost giving them an excuse not to follow you. It is a self-sabotaging leadership trait to complicate things. And most of us live in I certainly live in some state of self-sabotage all the time. Okay.
I do too.
When we're in a position of leadership, and leadership can be just as simple as we're in the public eye. You know, you've got your radio show, you've got your podcast, you're in the public eye. Leadership is inherent if you're visible to the public eye. And this conversation is just, pay attention, people. You don't need to be stuck in the same story. You can create a new leadership story for yourself. All you have to do is decide that it's not about other people and it is about you. And I'm known for teaching entrepreneurial women how to sell with confidence and ease. It starts with helping them get over their crap, but that's another story. The value of this conversation about leadership is that you can't sell if you can't lead. And leading yourself is the only way to even ask for a sales conversation, much less ask for money. So here's the conclusion after working with hundreds of entrepreneurial women that I've come to. Their wealth will never exceed their level of personal growth, ever. You just can't do it. There's no business set, there's no business skill, there's no business model, there is no software out there that will make you wealthy beyond what you believe you're worth.
Absolutely. And because people don't see their worth, they're not able to be successful in anything they pursue.
It's not their fault.
Relationships. Yeah. You see this
it's not
in
their fault, is my
relationships
first
a lot.
disclaimer.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Like they go into one relationship and it fails, and they go into another relationship and it fails, and it goes into a third relationship and it fails. And they're all like, why do all my relationships fail? Right? Why do I keep meeting the same people? It's because they haven't grown to recognize that this is typically how this type of individual behaves. And you can choose a different type of individual to start dating.
Once you become a different kind of individual.
Exactly.
It really is about who are you being? Who are you being? When you inspire yourself to be the kind of person that you want to be around, that you want to date, that's inspiring to a lot of other people around you. And it's the fastest path to having a really great relationship. And I'm kind of an expert on bad relationships. I have a lot of experience there. I'm not just divorced. I'm divorced times two. I'm divorced squared. And it's hard to be a single mom. It's hard to be a twice divorced woman my age. It's hard to be raised by a single mom. These were all things that are hard. Yes. And once I understood how the brain worked, I realized that story didn't have to be the only story I lived in my relationship life. And I discovered that relationships can be honest, authentic, and resilient. And I have one of those now. So there would have been a time where I would have said, and he's not getting away from me, and everybody would have laughed. Now it's the opposite. Our relationship is actually a temporary relationship. And that was inherent in the beginning because I didn't want another committed relationship. I knew just like I know I'm not good at sales, I knew I was not good at relationships. Didn't want one. He didn't either. So we made a very honest, upfront agreement that we're in a temporary relationship. Funny thing about that, Cody, we're in the 17th year of it.
It's so funny how when you come into the relationship in agreement on where you guys want to be going, being true to who you want to be, being true about what the path is that you guys are going on, how easy it is for every party to just say, yeah, that sounds good. And we're just going to continue going on that path.
Most relationships struggle, according to Wayne Dyer, most relationships struggle because one or both parties feel like they gave up some of their freedom. And his language was a spiritual relationship is different. It doesn't require you to give up who you are in any way, shape, or form. And I'm like, boy, that was simple. But you notice it's inherent that you know who you are. You can't be invisible to yourself and authentic in a relationship. Sorry. I tried. I know it doesn't work.
Definitely. So within that right there, how does one go about discovering themselves? Because it's the linchpin that allows you to accomplish all the things you want to accomplish. So where does someone even start that journey?
You got to give up a couple of things. To start that journey, you have to give up 2 things. The first one is shame, and the second one is blame. When you give those up and you accept that there's only one reason why you did anything, that's the shame piece. And there's only one reason why other people do what they do. That's the blame piece. So you can just grab this one answer to one question and it will start changing everything. The question is, why did you do that? Or why did I do that? That's the question. Both of those have exactly the same answer because blame and shame come from this question. Why did you do that? Here's the answer. Oh, by the way, if you have teenagers, I am about to save you so much grief. I raised 3 daughters. I know this works. Here we go. If you're ever tempted to ask, why did you do that? Here's the answer. Now you don't have to ask. The answer is because it seemed like a good idea at the time. That's it. That's the only reason we do anything. In the moment that we did it, it seemed like a good idea. It seemed like the best option. Sounded good to me. And now that you know that that's why they did it, you don't have to ask. You don't have to bring blame or shame into the conversation at all. You can let those 2 elephants take a nap. And you can then start looking at, oh, okay, well, probably, and you can tell them, probably seemed like a good idea at the time. What's your plan going forward? As soon as you do that, by my definition, you've become a leader.
Absolutely. And I love that because especially when you're looking at kids, right? The double thing that can happen with that. One is you cannot shame or blame them, right? So you give them the opportunity to move forward and not be stuck in the past. On top of that, you can give them the opportunity to self-discover. You can say, hey, I know you probably felt like this would be a good idea at the time.
Well, yeah, we know
Why?
that's true.
Yeah, why did you feel that way at that time?
And that's different. That's different than saying, why did you do it?
Yeah.
You know, I'm sensitive to the why question altogether. So I would ask a what question, and it would be, what did you think would happen? Or what were you thinking? Or what do you know now that you didn't know before? That's one of my favorites.
Yeah. And I was going to say that's the follow-up question is, okay, so why did you think like that at that time? And now that you know that's what you were thinking and you have new information, how are you going to think in the future? What can you do with this new information?
It's really a blessing if somebody is around you and can ask you, what do you know now that you didn't know before? Because that starts the whole recognition process of the fact that there's no such thing as failure. There's only opportunities to learn. And just without talking about failure at all, because as soon as you say the F word, you have alienated a lot of people. So I don't bring that up usually. I just go ahead and go into the question. What do you know now that you didn't know before? Yeah. Would you do it again? Is a really good question to ask kids. When you're coming from a place where you're not angry, you're not judging, you're not shaming, shoulding, or blaming, you're just exploring, what do you know now that you didn't know before? What would you like to have be different? Okay, so what decision could you make that would get you the different outcome? These are questions that if we brought them into the workplace, it's so much safer to talk about them in terms of our children. If we brought them into the workplace, we would change the dynamics of our work culture very quickly.
Absolutely. Because you brought it up, how would you say you would see that?
When I see the change? Have you ever had somebody make a mistake and pretend that nothing was wrong at work?
I've been that person before. So yes, I 100% understand that one.
What if that never happened again? What if instead of embarrassment, angst, anxiety, and anguish, the employees go, what do I know now that I didn't know before, and who else needs to know this? And so instead of hiding what happened, they are bringing that information into the organization so that nobody else has to do the same thing. Would it change the culture if even one person did that?
Absolutely.
So that's how I see that it could quickly change the culture. If your employees felt like they could honestly say, that didn't work out. This is what I learned. This is what I think will work better. What do you think? And they bring that to their team or they bring that to their manager. Hey, it takes all of the emotional charge out of it because there's nowhere to go with blame then. And managers and people in leadership positions are not used to their employees taking ownership. But there's this whole wave, Cody, I'm sure you're aware, this wave of, we've got disengaged employees. It's the boss's job to get them engaged. Well, this is the shortcut. I was a human resources consultant back in the day. And when they started this whole employee engagement, I realized they were doing it backwards. It's not about engagement. It's about safety and empowerment. and this embracing the power to share what they learned. If an employee feels safe that they can say, got unexpected results here, AKA, I made a mistake, got unexpected results here, and there's no shame or blame around it. It's what do I know now that I didn't know before? Who else needs to know this? And then you've got people running to say, hey, I screwed up, and guess what? We don't ever have to lose money this way again. One of my mentors, his COO, when his COO was just starting to work for him as a JV manager, he was managing all of his joint ventures and all of their appointments and the webinars and the this and that. And he had suffered from some time zone fluidity in the scheduling. And so my mentor showed up to deliver a webinar at the wrong time. He was late by an hour. This did not go well with the other JV. And his JV manager came to him expecting to be fired. They figure it cost them about $2 million based on what his normal conversion would have been on that particular presentation. Yeah. And so the JV manager walked in going, and my mentor said, are you kidding? I just spent $2 million helping you get an education. Now you write down the rules so that this doesn't happen again, and we keep going. Most people fire.
Right off the bat, without even thinking.
Oh my God, there's so much publicity out there right now that's hire slow, fire fast. If you, in the first week, I'm going to make a decision, no stress or pressure on your new employee at all. This whole thing of hire slow, fire fast is not in sync with the way our brains work. What if you trusted your gut on the hire so you could hire quickly, and you knew that they were going to get unexpected outcomes, learn something new, bring it back to you, not try to hide it? The reason that the world is the way it is because there's not this place of empowerment where employees can say, hey, I made a mistake. I learned this. Now we can course correct. We don't have that environment in very many places. And that's why we're having the churn on employees. They don't feel safe to come and say, I don't know how to do this. And so they try and they struggle and they screw up and it costs money and they get fired before they ever get a chance to build trust with their employer. It's a real shame.
Absolutely. And I would even venture to say there's a secondary shame that we don't talk about a lot, but there's the shame that when that person gets fired, now you're impacting their self-worth. And their self-worth has basically prevents them from getting a good job later on, makes it more difficult to get a better job later on. It makes them think like, I'm not worthy of a good job. And so they stay in a low position.
We come into the world with a belief system about what we're worth. And when we come into the workplace, if we're not in an environment that allows us to grow, we don't ever get a chance to grow our self-worth. And it's dicey for employers to allow their employees to grow. This can be expensive lessons like it was for my mentor.
Yeah.
But you only have to pay it once, as compared to hiring, firing, hiring, firing, hiring, firing, where you're paying that price every time you have this culture that says it's not safe to tell you that I got unexpected outcomes, unexpected results here.
Exactly.
It's a different conversation from back in the day when we would tell employees what to do clearly. Now we assume they know what to do. It's a dangerous assumption.
And you know what they say about assumptions. I'm not going to say what they say, but I think most of us know what they say.
Yeah, it has something to do with our assets.
Yeah, about our assets, exactly. Oh my gosh. But it's so true. We assume so much. We assume that someone coming out of college is going to know exactly what to do as soon as you place them on the job. We assume that they're going to have experience, and often they don't. And we assume that someone coming from another place doing a similar job is going to know exactly how to do it within this function here at this place, which it could be a different system they're using. It could be different work dynamics that we're using. Communication styles are different. There's so many different variables. How can you assume that it's going to be exactly the same?
The answer is, how can you assume? Very easily. Actually, it's a habit. The question is, how do you break the habit?
Yes.
How do you not assume? First, you've got to be self-aware enough to know that you're operating from assumptions. You know, I used to assume that my internet would work for hosting a summit or for being on a summit, until I hosted my own, and in a practice session, I lost internet.
Uh-oh.
Now, when is losing internet in the middle of a summit a good thing? When it's a practice run with a tech person from the website company, because I lost internet and they didn't. So we learned that if the host loses internet, the panelists can keep going on. And so I started teaching all my panelists, if I lose out, do you know that's the only day the internet went out at my house? Somebody wanted me to get that lesson. I tell people who are speakers, there are some assumptions that will help you make more money. The first one is assume you're going to have a flat tire on your way to a speaking gig. Allow for the time for it. Better for you to be early and take a nap than for you to be late and create problems for the person that you most want on your side, which is not the audience, it's the event planner. Yeah. So assume that you're going to have a flat tire. Assume, oh, my friends just went overseas and lost their luggage on their way to a wedding. So assume that they're going to lose your luggage and ship your wedding clothes. You know, which is what my sister did, which is why she actually was appropriately dressed at her daughter's wedding, because they lost her luggage on the way to her daughter's wedding.
Oh my goodness.
Their clothes for the wedding, you know, trackable, all of that stuff. If you just assume that things are not going to go according to plan, you've got a much better shot at arriving in a good mood, which is all that they want from you. They want you to show up unstressed, able to think on your feet, able to bring the results to the audience, able to bring the results to the clients. That's what they have hired you to do, no matter whether you're a speaker or a trainer, or a consultant, or a window washer. They are hiring you to show up in the right mood, attitude, and energy to get the job done effectively, efficiently. And if you entertain a few people along the way, it's better. So much better. Yeah. Getting control of that starts with assuming you're going to need to course correct.
Exactly. And that's such a fantastic lesson, because so many people are caught up in the idea that if I create this plan, it's going to be perfect. And I'm just going to go down it and nothing's going to challenge it. And so often we're walking down the path and lightning strikes a tree and the tree falls in front of us and we're like, oh crap, yep. There's a tree right in front of me. This wasn't part of the plan. And like, there's so many options about what you can do to get to the other side of the tree. But most people say, hey, the tree is here in my path. It's all over. This is it. I'm just going to lay down and I'm going to die.
And that's what we were talking about. This tendency to awfulize and catastrophize and to say that, oh, I stubbed my toe, now my whole day is stubbed. That's what we're seeing. And this is a really sad, somber topic. So I'm just going to bring it up and then I'm going to lighten it up. So everybody hang on. we've got a generation coming up, and we've got our military, and the collision is that the rise of suicide is pervasive in our culture. So I work with the veterans on the one side. Now I'm working with the teens, and I'm working with the teens with the book that you're going to be in. The Make It a Great Day, the choice is yours. I'm so happy that you're going to write a story for the teens.
I'm excited.
The book is up on Amazon. People can find it and pre-order it. So it's Make It a Great Day, the choice is yours, or just makeitagreatday.com. Make it, something like that. You'll find Make It a Great Day book. I'm sorry. makeitagreatdaybook.com will take them to Amazon. And they can get the book, the Kindle, now they can go ahead and pre-order it. When the print book comes out, Cody, I've got a deal where anybody who buys a copy of the print book, we're going to be able to give a copy to a teen for free. So we're partnering with the Boys and Girls Clubs. We're partnering with the More Than Ball group. All of these organizations that are working to give our teens some resilience, we're going to give them our stories of the moments we inspired ourselves, and maybe it will help inspire them.
It's so beautiful, and I'm so honored that you're allowing me to be a part of it, because it's so true. There are so many people all over the world facing things that they shouldn't be facing, and they feel like it's all over, and they feel like there's no hope. And that's not the truth of it. The truth of it is there is hope. The truth of it is you still have value, regardless of what happened. The truth of it is we can make something better tomorrow. It may not be perfect at this second, but we can move forward and accomplish amazing things in the future.
That's really the message of leadership, I think, that I would love for people to get, is that where you are is where you are. Where you are tomorrow is up to you.
Absolutely. And that's and the past doesn't define that, right? The past was there and you can learn from it, but you don't have to point at it and say that's true because of the X, because of Y. Yeah. Right? You can say, sure, that happened back there, whatever. That's there. This is where we're headed to. These are the things that can be done. We learned this here, so we're not going to do it over here, right? When that situation pops up, we're going to handle it this way instead.
And that's taking ownership of your life. When you take ownership of your past, whatever it is, whatever it was, and you just go ahead and own it, from that place, now you've got one point of your compass. The other point that you need to draw a map is, where do you want to go? Most people are so busy trying to pretend that they don't have a beginning point. They never get around to fixing their eyesight on the end point, and then they wonder why they're not making any progress in their lives. If you just own where you are right now, you fix that point, then you fix the point where you want to go, you will be pulled in that direction. You won't be able to help yourself from moving forward. This is the fast, easy. People think personal development is hard. No, personal development is easy as soon as you decide that it can be easy.
Absolutely. And the same thing happens with opportunity. So often we don't see opportunity. But one thing I've realized in my own life is I just believe opportunity will be there. And oh my gosh, it goes crazy sometimes how many things pop up. And there's a point, like you were saying before, where you have to be like, no, I can't do all of these things, right? There are certain things.
My elephants.
Yeah, no, and I've been there, and luckily I've been learning that lesson, because it can be crazy how much opportunity is out there. It's crazy all the amazing things people are doing in the world. And you can't do everything. So you got to figure out, what is it you can do? What is the value you have that you can bring into the world?
I think you just hit upon something I hadn't thought of. I think one of the reasons people can't see the opportunities that are in front of them is that they're afraid of the overwhelm of too many opportunities. So just something all noodle. I'll come up with something around that. Oh, all right. The organizer of your show and
Yes.
you, between the two of you, I have agreed to open 3 seats in my 3-day event that's coming up in Sarasota, Florida,
Wow.
to 3 people, 3 of your listeners, that they can attend for free. So the first 3 people who go to totalsuccesslife.com will be able to grab a seat at the table. Now, I have to disclaim that I misspoke. It is 3 women entrepreneurs, because that's who this particular event is for.
All right, so I'm disqualified. I'm not getting one of the free seats.
Now, you can't come, and so sorry about that. But this one's just for women because it's a small group, get it done implementation event where we actually dig into your core 4 stories, and they will come out the other side of this weekend with their 45-minute signature talk framed out, their 7-minute main message, both written and rehearsed, and their intro so solid they can stand on it. And what's not on that website for them to get all the details is the bonus, which is that I have a professional videographer who's going to be there all 3 days. So they're going to come out with their 7-minute talk, professionally videoed, and their intro, professionally videoed. So they'll have those assets for their websites, their blogs, and whatever they want to do with them.
That is phenomenal, because I know that piece right there is it, like just the videography piece can be very pricey. It can be extremely pricey to get professional anything done, to be honest, but especially videography, and to have your talk all crafted out masterfully and impactfully. That is so needed for so many people.
It's the difference between wanting to speak and knowing that you're a speaker. And everyone at this event comes out of the event with the experience, so that they know, they don't just believe, they don't just think, they know they're a speaker. They know what their message is. Mm-hmm.
And that's actually a very important distinction, not just in the speaking world, but in so many different places. Because so many people tell themselves, I want to be this. Stop wanting to be that and start being that. If you want to be a leader, start being a leader. If you want to be a legendary leader, figure out what it takes to be a legendary leader and start being a legendary leader.
There's a really fun place to start with that. And somebody coined this term as a way of dissing people, but actually it was brilliant. Be a legend in your own mind. Allow yourself to visualize what that is for you. It will come about if you allow it to be in your mind first, then it will show up in your world. And that's really just a wonderful way to conclude this. So I want to make sure that if there were any questions that ended up in the chat box, that we addressed it. But I know that my time with you is almost up. So.
I know it's so sad, because this has been another amazing, fantastic conversation in the Legendary Leadership Summit so far. Jackie, it truly has been phenomenal, truly phenomenal. And I know you're getting ready, not because you've honored us with your presence, but you're about to honor another audience with your presence right after this. You're a champ. You're just like, I'm going from one to the next. No big deal. Let's go.
All right. Here's the disclaimer for all of you all who are thinking about pursuing a life that is on purpose, that you're absolutely just in love with, that you're inspired to do. Be mindful. It's addictive.
No, I 100% understand you. 100%, because it starts happening and you're like, oh, this is good. Yeah, I can do more of this. And then you'll start getting more of it, because it, like, when you truly are full into something and you love it and you want other people to see it like you do, people want that in the world. There's not enough of it in the world, and people want to see that. And that's a perfect opportunity for you to stand up as a leader, to stand up in front of people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be on stage, right? It can be on stage if you want it to be, but it can just be on your team of 5 people. It could just be in front of your family. You can be that person, because it's missing all over the place.
There's no limit to where inspiration can occur. Let it start inside your heart. Everyone else will notice.
Absolutely. It's the internal game first. And once you get the internal game, you can't help but show it externally.
That's truth. That's truth. On that note, have a wonderful afternoon with the rest of your summit, Cody. Thank you again so much for allowing me to be a part of your journey.
Well, thank you for being a part of the journey and being here within the midst of your crazy busy schedule of amazingness. It's been an honor having you with us. I've had a ton of takeaways, so thank you for being here, Jackie.
You're very welcome. And thank you all for paying attention, showing up, and staying around. And we hope that you have a leading day. How about you just take a leading role in your life? There we go.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.